positions of hopelessness and helplessness. The government gives them the drugs, builds bigger prisons, passes a 3-strike law, and then wants us to sing God Bless America. No, 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 not God Bless America. God damn America. That's in the Bible for killing innocent people. God damn America for treating us citizens as less than human. God damn America as long as she tries to act like she is God and she is supreme.
Greetings, the damned, and welcome to Pod Damn America. I don't know why I did it like that this time. Long, drawn out. Welcome to Pod Damn America, the gothic socialist podcast for idiots. My name's Jake Flores. I've got the full fucking crew in today. I've got with me Alex Patak.
Grab some eggnog. It's story time.
Hell yeah. Rock of Meta.
Hey.
Nice. Anders Lee.
Anders Lee here.
And special guest from Champagne Sharks, T. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Good. Good to finally get you in here. Welcome, everyone, to our sort of news of the week roundup for this week. It is, as I'm recording this, November 27th, 2018. What the fuck is going on in the world right now? Everyone's horny for Beto for some reason. This woman tweeted on Twitter something about him fucking her so hard that her calves cramped up or something.
Yes.
I only bring this up because something else happened. That same woman tweeted something this week that I thought was she didn't do anything wrong, but she just,
There's something wrong with her calves.
The same woman, somebody pointed out.
She doesn't have health care to get them fixed.
Something I think is kind of telling is that she was clearly so thirsty for Beto, right? Then this week, I think a lot of people started going through, Beto's closet skeletons and sort of dirty money and stuff, and we have to start actually looking at him and going.
They saw his fat pics.
Yeah. Okay.
His closet skeletons are all skateboarding.
What's going to go wrong if this guy actually runs for president? Because all these people want him to run for president, right? And so, anyways, in the middle of all this, he just has a meeting with Texans of AIPAC, and he tweets out this. I had a great meeting with AIPAC Texans and our fucking allies in the region, all this stuff, right? So he shows his own ass. He's clearly he's not this progressive person, yada yada yada. So the only reason I bring that up is because simultaneously, this woman who was horny for Beto, she's obviously someone who's addicted to social media and tweets out, sort of. I don't know where I'm going with this. She tweeted out a picture of the tear gas in Tijuana where they gassed these people going over the border. There was this big viral picture of this, these kids in diapers that got tear gas. She goes, "Oh my God, this is horrible," right? So that's kind of weird because, you look at her and you go, "Hey, you like Beto so much. Have you ever seen pictures of Gaza? Maybe you should look into this," right? But the only reason I'm telling this story is because it comes around full circle where I was reading the replies to her tweets, and some guy just happened to reply and say, "Oh, I guess these Mexicans are using their children as human shields now, right?" Which is terrible and dumb and wrong.
It's wrong.
It doesn't make any sense. And I was reading this and I was like,
rumor.
"Wow, people on the internet are so horrible," And then I was like, "Wait a minute!" And I looked at his avatar, his Avi on Twitter, and I was like, "This can't be right." And I clicked on it and I zoomed in. And this racist guy, his Twitter avatar is a picture of him with Gabriel Iglesias.
Oh,
dun,
cool.
dun, dun, dun.
The fat comedian guy with the Hawaiian shirt.
It goes all the way to the top. Follow Magic Mike's money.
So this super xenophobic, crazy rando guy I found on Twitter loves Gabriel Iglesias, enough to make his own profile picture.
He's a man of contradiction.
Yeah. So all of that horrible shit I just said, I guess should set the tone for what's going on in the week. No one has any actual beliefs that don't contradict each other.
All those people always have their favorite comedian is always some hacky theater comedian like Sebastian Maniscalco or Chris D'Elia or something. It's always here's me with fucking Louis Black or something. He's not hacky, but you know what I'm saying.
Jim Gaffigan wants to build the wall.
Like 10 years,
I put words in his mouth.
10 years ago, they were definitely into what's the guy's name? Carlos Mencia.
Carlos Mencia.
Oh yeah, who stole one of the greatest wall jokes. about who's gonna build that wall.
Oh, who did he steal that from?
I think it was Ari.
Me.
No, it was Ari Shafir. I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
Fuck.
that makes
While
sense.
Ari Shafir is doing the amazing racist thing.
We've set the tone this week, and
Man,
the tone is fucked up.
Imagine how it would be like if Carlos Mencia wishes he was exposed as a joke thief right now. When it's the least worst thing you could do as a comedian. It's like, I got railroaded for this shit.
Yeah, yeah, that was rather tame by today's standards, as it turns out.
It's about ethics and comedy journalism.
I don't know. I feel like when that wall thing was going, wow, I can't believe the wall thing even goes back that far. Crazy to think about, but I feel like for someone like Ari Shafir to come out and be like, "Hey, you stole that joke from me," it's like saying like you stole, I don't know, like some kind of public domain kind of joke.
Right.
That's like, I mean, I was doing comedy in Texas at the time, and that was like every fucking show you went to, someone was like, "Who's gonna build the wall, huh?"
Yeah.
You know?
Damn.
I don't know. I don't mean to start like stand-up comedy beef on this show.
That shit happens all the time. There's always like a veteran comic and then like a micer, and they're like, "You stole that 100 you miss 100 shots you don't take alcoholics joke for me." Like that happens like every fucking year.
6 years ago, I was at the dentist and said it was tooth hurty. You have no right to that money.
I fucking love that joke, and no one ever gets it when I say it. I don't think I deliver it very well.
The worst is people like that on Twitter. You ever see people get mad about stolen tweets? Like, get really worked up about it?
Yeah.
It's like nobody's making money off of this thing. I don't even understand.
Yeah, you
Well, except the fat JEW, you know.
Oh, yeah, except for him.
Who?
The fat.
He spelled it out, so you know it won't show up in the search.
Oh,
We
sorry.
can't say his name.
We can't.
Read you loud and clear.
The plump.
He just steals our podcast. He starts covering. He just does our podcast.
Yeah. He just aggregates our podcast. He starts doing...
so my bike got stolen. It's pretty fucked up. Oh, and now the DHS is here.
Right.
Makes
He
way
threatens
more
the
money.
What was it? Exploding Samsungs? That's the other one.
Oh, man. Yeah. Dude, steal Dan Nina's material. Complete the circle of comedy.
Oh God.
There was another stolen bit thing that was really funny a few years ago when like Amy Schumer and Patrice O'Neill were doing the same bit that was just a frat guy joke, and then like there was all this hearsay about
The donkey punch joke.
Yeah, which is a joke for children by children. Like that's a joke that someone tells you in middle school.
Yeah, I wrote it in the cafeteria in 8th grade. Yeah.
I actually had my first year in comedy. I wrote
donkey punch.
well, close. I had a really solid 5 minutes. It was killer. You
Right,
remember this.
yeah.
And it turned out, I didn't realize this, but it was the same 5 minutes as Monique.
You piece of shit. I was so
Bronique.
invested in that.
Yeah. Anyways, I guess one thing we could start off by talking about is this terrible Lena Dunham piece that came out this week. I think I might be the only person who's made it to the end.
It's terrible for Lena Dunham.
I'll explain.
Is it?
Yeah, I feel
She's
like
done
I
now.
feel strangely sympathetic to her, and I don't like it. Like, it's gonna be hard to just like go in on her.
Yeah, no, it's a good piece because it's not really a hit piece. It just makes you feel bad for her.
It's just an episode of Girls. It's Lena Dunham existing, and which is simultaneously a hit piece, simultaneously have sympathy for me.
And there's a paragraph I'm on right here where I don't know if this makes Jemima Kirk a great friend or like a terrible one, but it talks about how she had a hysterectomy, and she's crying to Jemima Kirk, "Who's gonna want to date me? I have PTSD and no uterus." And Kirk's answer is a soldier who hates condoms. I'm like, that's both like a great joke, but like a terrible friend response. Like,
yeah. Well, there is something about like Lena Dunham's waspy upbringing that she even invokes in this article a few times when she talks about like some of the controversies about things she said, or she explains them away as these like sort of sort of sassy, like waspy, ironic jokes. Like she says a few times that things that she got in trouble for were jokes like of that ilk that would be, not. She almost kind of comes off a little bit like an edgelord in parts of this. Where she's like,
right.
Yeah.
Me and my friends, we have this sophisticated sense of humor that by today's standards, would get you in trouble for actually just, I was just being ironic or whatever. It's really weird. Like, for the stuff I think me and T are going to record later, I've been reading also a bunch of Gavin McInnes.
There's a lot of overlap, yeah.
To me, they seem like two sides of a very strange coin.
I was thinking the other day when I was watching the Jon Stewart make that terrible trans joke, with Kucinich. You guys remember that one?
Yeah.
And
Chick with a dick.
yeah, and it was weird because that was the aughts. Like the aughts was strangely regressive, way more than 10 years ago should have been. I don't know what happened. Like that was like I think the aughts
I know what happened.
I think the aughts was when everybody thought problems were over, that we were post-racial, we were post everything, so you can just say whatever you want. You know what I mean?
I distinctly remember post 9/11 there being a much lower threshold for jokes in the classroom that were involved race. Like little kids, I lived in Virginia at the time, so little kids would tell racist jokes. And before 9/11, you joked about like brown people. It's not really okay. After 9/11, no holds bar.
We're at war now.
Yeah.
It's
Because you
different.
have to.
The war starts at home.
You have to otherize and demonize somebody, and that goes to every strain of society, including.
And the flip side on it too, where if you like mention the idea of the military, everybody has to be like, "Those are some great guys."
Right. Yeah, that was political correctness in the early aughts.
The whole "thank you for your service" thing.
Yeah, don't insult the troops.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, you see it.
That was like misgendering somebody. If you suggest that a troop is like not an entirely valiant human being just
because they weren't born a troop.
I remember I was in a media class in 2010, and there was one guy in there who would like, by today's standards, be like, I guess you're like SJW type, and he was he would always like say stuff like that, and the topic of the troops came up. And I was like, support the troops is like a bullshit slogan. It like doesn't mean anything. And then it's a distraction, blah, blah, blah. And then and this guy, it was like got really in my face about it. He's like, well, what do you mean? You don't support the troops? And I'm like, well, what the fuck do you mean by that? Like, and now everyone says it's like a hack line. It's like by paying your taxes or whatever. And he like got very defensive. And then, like, my teacher, like, cut me off. And he's like, okay, we're going to move. So that never happened before. It's like, I had this pretty liberal teacher, but it's like, oh, yeah, this is something we can't touch. It's like, is the U.S. Army donating to this class? I don't get it. Yeah.
A weird thing was, like, the firefighters and policemen became the troops, too, for a short time. Like, firefighters were like the troops. You couldn't make a firefighter joke, or you had to, like, respect them when they came by. It was like,
no one was getting laid more than New York cops and firefighters, from 2002 to 2005.
If you made a joke about a Chinese fire drill, people would be like, hey, the racist part is all right, but you respect our men in uniform. Yeah.
That's hard work.
Change that to Foxconn Factory.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I guess you're right. Like post 9/11, there was this like we're looking at everything that's happening now culturally and starting to kind of deconstruct what the weird like simmering, just combination of things was that all this stuff sprang forth from. And it's like, yeah, there was like this weird patriotism and abandonment of a lot of, thought pre 9/11. There was also like into Obama, like I think a lot of just introspection because for like waspy people like Lena Dunham, it was like, yeah, everything's fine,
Right.
Yeah.
Racism has been solved, etc.
Well, yeah, and like speaking to like the collective amnesia is that because the Iraq War was so bad and people don't know how to comprehend, or they're given to this binary, and then they don't know the full length of like the atrocities of Vietnam or even things Clinton did, is they thought, well, as long as we get rid of this Bush guy, like we won't endure any more of this under Obama. Like there's still like a glimmer of hope there. Yeah.
It's the closest you get to electing Green Day president.
We didn't do that?
No. 2020, baby.
Speaking of Obama, there's something interesting about like what's happening on the border right now with the migrant caravan, which is that obviously this is like terrible. They tear gas somebody. I think a child died, and it's this big viral story now. But somebody inevitably, if you talk about this long enough, will bring up the fact that like this did happen under Obama too. I think I looked up. I don't know. I'll link to it or whatever. But there's a fucking an analysis of it that tells you from 2013 forward, there were like 126 uses of tear gas on the border. So it's nothing new, but
it's been bad the whole time, folks.
Yeah,
he built the IDC centers. He built the infrastructure.
My friend Mike McRae said on Twitter something that was really interesting to me, which is that he was like, "Hey, Republicans, you can't simultaneously be like, finally someone is doing something about the border, and Obama also did this. Like those two things cancel each other out,
Except they can, and they're great at it.
Yeah.
They contradict themselves all the time.
I guess they just don't care, yeah.
But if we say they do that on Twitter, they will stop.
Right.
Right. Can't defeat them with logic.
Because it's debate class.
Right.
It's kind of random, but I was thinking, like, Lena Dunham, I feel like because of how she looked, and she was in Brooklyn when Brooklyn was, like, really becoming very mainstreamed and stuff, she kind of got pegged as the voice of a generation for, like, 2010s Brooklyn. But I think her sensibility was actually the aughts Brooklyn of, like, Terry Richardson and Gavin McInnes and early Vice. And I think she was kind of out of date.
I think she was in 1920s Brooklyn. She was a flapper.
She does look like a photo of a woman like from the past.
Yeah. She was friends with Zelda Fitzgerald. Yeah. She was Zelda Fitzgerald's wild friend.
I mean, I do think it's cool that like she has that she had that body type and was able to like I guess make that more palatable for people who are to have that image out there is important. But like we were talking before the show, like it seemed like she had everything given to her really early on in terms of being an artist, being a filmmaker, or someone who's making media like that. Like making girls, that's something that takes most people who are in that position 10 years to work up to that, and they develop the skills to do that. She had all this just handed to her at once. And part of those skills, one thing is like thinking about what you're making and what the broader implications of it are, and I think some of this has to do with growing up in neoliberalism, but like art to her and a lot of that sort of clique of people, it's not political, it's just about me, and that's kind of what I think why I stopped. I liked Girls at first, but as I watched it, it was like this is just about one person's interiority and their like very specific life, and like this doesn't really say anything else. Like that so personal things are important, but like art's got to be more than that.
The thing that she said though, like I don't know, her whole career starts off with this like weird sort of misunderstanding, or at least something that she's gone back on and sort of said got misinterpreted, which is that the initial joke of Girls is her being this self-involved fucking Brooklynite white girl saying, I think I'm the voice of a generation. And then you're supposed to watch the show and understand, oh, this is an unlikable character, and this is going to be sort of a criticism of herself.
Her character is the Noid.
But then it sort of goes on to actually imply, no, maybe I really am the voice of a generation.
I think my theory is she was trying to write a likable character, but her metric for a likable character is only marginally better than the unlikable. So when she switches from like unlikable to like she has no her contrast is marginally better. So she doesn't have enough knowledge of what a likable person is like to accurately do a show about an unlikable person, because everybody ends up different degrees of unlikable. She can't.
She's like having trouble engaging in wrestling dynamics and trying to turn heel and shit, and like doesn't really know how to pull it off.
Her idea of relatability is what like Judd Apatow does on Fallon. Like it's like, what would he say there? Because they were like close friends with her family or whatever.
Yeah,
it's true.
Well, that's why like
she got those deals.
Her kind of something about the like the kind of Obama era of just like art and stuff has always been really interesting to me. Is like I feel like so I had this this meeting with an agent one time or whatever, and he said something stuck with me.
Secret agents.
The secret agent. But he wanted to represent me for stand-up comedy.
Look, I'm trying to get out of the CIA.
Yeah.
All you have to do
take down
The hours suck.
is join a gang.
Yeah. I'm a Russian chaos agent, but only through doing stand-up comedy in bars in front of 10 people.
No, he wanted you to kill people, literally, like to get, enemies of the state in an audience and have them laugh to death.
What a hilarious miscommunication that was.
So this guy said something to me that I thought was really interesting. Real early on in me doing stand-up, it's kind of stuck with me, where he was like, yeah, I look at people when I do these showcases, and I, the thing that I always look at with comedians, when I want to make a decision to decide whether they're like ripe, they're like ready, they like have a point of view, is do they talk about themselves or do they go out and talk about outward shit like society? And he goes, you watch like fucking Tom Papa or something, he comes out and he just starts talking at the audience, and when you watch new people that are like doing open mics and stuff, they always go, here's my background, I'm from this state, here's I'm this whatever, this race, my parents did this. It's always like autobiographical.
This is what I look like, and these are my gams. If there are any agents
Are you
watching.
telling me there's another comic out there who's telling the audience what they look like? That's my shtick.
No, that's Monique's shtick.
Damn it.
You can't keep stealing it.
You are not a woman of color.
It doesn't make any sense when you do it.
I thought it was kind of
But even
interesting.
think pieces are like that. Think pieces now is always like, as a transgender like suicide bomber, I have to like they have to like preface what or who they are before speaking on the thing, and it's supposed to like just automatically imply that you're knowledgeable, or qualified, and it works in reverse too. If you're not that, people can just go on Twitter and be like there's a story I tell over and over again, but I shouldn't because it's not that good. But it's
all right, welcome to our podcast.
But I was talking about the Star Wars movie once, and I was talking about how I didn't like how they made the Asian character look like kind of like a stereotypical like Funko Pop having like Comic-Con girl. Right. She's acting like she's supposed to be a mechanic in a Resistance army, and she's just running around like fangirling over Finn. I'm like, no, that's a weird stereotypical choice.
Yeah.
And then this editor from Marvel, I don't know if she was name searching or what. This editor from Marvel / Disney just pops in my mention. She's like, "Were you spoken to any Asian women about how they feel about what you said? Maybe we should talk to them." I'm like, I'm sure there's some Asian women who don't like the character. I don't think it's like, there's a lot of Asian people out there. And then this white guy comes in and he's like, well, I think maybe we should talk to an Asian woman before you speak. And then an Asian woman who actually works for Marvel popped in.
Screenshots.
An Asian woman from Marvel who does art, does covers and stuff, pops in. She goes, actually, I'm an Asian woman. Me and all my friends don't like the character either. And they all just disappeared. They had no
Spread it out.
You erased them.
she erased them.
I have a great example of this, and I've definitely, I don't think I've talked to you about it. I think
Sure.
maybe Ishmael talks about it, but there are Indian comics who hate when you do the Indian voice, right? That's an established
That's me.
thing. That's you for
Yep.
sure. It's probably several people, but
You're an Indian comic. Hearing this, I'm talking about you.
I had this guy on my show a while ago who I saw in another city and was killing, just kind of talking about himself, and he's a black gay guy. So he talks about how he's a black gay guy, but he was raised homophobic, and that's hilarious. And he put that in the set, but he opened his set the next time I had him with just long impressions of Indian people.
Oh, yeah. It's at that show.
It was kind of like, if you put this in the middle, maybe someone would have let you get away with it, but I don't know. It didn't work for you.
Look, I love when that happens because all the woke laugh gets their receptors mixed up. So they're like, should we laugh? We don't know.
Fuck. I need screenshots.
Yeah.
Wait, so Jake, but this agent was like, oh, so I'm looking for people who talk about their identity.
No, he was like, I'm looking for the second kind of person. He's like, I don't think he's kind of framed it as like, I think when people start off creatively, at least, and this was during like Obama, he was people tend to start off in this autobiographical way, and then if they sort of like reach the second phase or whatever of being a comic, they grow into writing like outwardly, like, you know, walking on stage and talking about society and stuff and not talking about yourself. Like, he kind of framed talking about yourself autobiographically as being kind of hacky and being like a fearful impulse that people have in their first 6 months of open micing or whatever. And it really stuck with me because I noticed, you know, then I went and like I did stand up for diversity like real early on into the fucking finals, and
men with beards need representation.
well, I mean, I like, it's just shaky with being half Mexican shit all the time, but like even back then, full on, just people look like Anders were just going in and just going like, listen, you know, like no one paid that fucking program any respect, and now it's not.
You did
even
the first year of it.
No. It's been around for a long time.
Oh, okay.
I did like year 7 or something like that.
Oh, I see.
Man, if you look back in the early days of that, like Hannibal was in it and shit, and it was like.
Oh yeah, okay.
But then also there's just a sea of like people you've never heard of.
Hannibal is black, from what I hear.
He is. It's true.
Just like you.
You call him like you see him.
Social media avatars are all misleading. I try to keep people off the case.
But I noticed when I went to San Antonio, which is like a real poor working class city, a lot of non-white people there. Every single person's audition was, so I'm this race and this race, which means yada yada yada. Everyone's doing the Dan Ninen joke.
Oh god.
They all would just tell you where they buy their sushi.
So at least for me, that always kind of stuck with me. Which is to say, I don't think writing autobiographically from your own experience is bad, but it as like a major point of view that everyone is coming from, you know, and something that maybe you should break out of at least, or at least actively try to. To me, Lena Dunham is really symptomatic of that. I think at the time of Lena Dunham, at the time of girls, like that indie rock was real popular. You know, everything was real introspective, and it was like, hey, everything's fine in the world if you're, you know, middle class and well off or whatever. So now is this time culturally to like look into your soul. And
you
stuff.
could do existential dread because you didn't have other problems,
right?
Yeah.
And if you do that now during Trump, like, you're an asshole, right?
Yeah, right.
No one wants to hear
Keep your dread to yourself.
Your dating life. Like,
Yeah,
who gives
yeah,
a
yeah.
shit, right?
Fuck you.
Yeah, I think there was like a wave 1 of hipsters that started around 2001, 2002 that was kind of apathetic, self-absorbed, just cared about just like getting unicycles and shit and had no politics. And then it kind of got several waves. I don't think hipsters even exist anymore because it's not really a scene. It's just kind of a mainstream aesthetic, you know. But now people who look like what those hipsters looked like back then are into politics or into socialism. It's a very different scene, and I feel like she came in with the old sensibility at a time when it was changing to the new sensibility, and everybody thought that she was actually mocking the old sensibility, but she was just being herself.
She was just like that.
Yeah, she was just like that. She had nothing
yeah.
insightful to say about it.
Yeah.
At all.
In order to keep up with the changes in the culture, she should have been bringing around a large snake. That was early 2010s Brooklyn.
I think maybe like if she had fully embraced, you know, like writing an autobiographical show and showing, you know, all of the ugly stuff about herself, and that being like sort of an artistic achievement that throws herself under the bus, that would be kind of cool. But
Absolutely.
she simultaneously got cast as like the, you know, this like the voice of like modern feminism and all this stuff, and like
she cast herself as
that's
that,
the
though.
thing, right? She got like tempted into it in a sense,
Right.
which is like, I don't know. I mean, you saw the same thing happen with like Amy Schumer. She used to be an edgelord, and then, you know, now she's like
An edge lady.
fair enough. But you know, I think there's
The
something
irony lady.
tempting. They almost offer you that as a job. Like
Irony bras. Yeah, I mean, I think like my favorite comedy art is when you can merge those two things, the personal and the political. You know,
can't be
say-
done.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Caddyshack. Just going to name a movie. It's like, my favorite comedy is Airplane.
There's a gopher, and you have to get that gopher.
I'm sure there's a Zizek essay about Caddyshack and the gold standard or something out there. But if you're able to like do that, you know, like make a show about the history of autism, and you are autistic, like
Then you're
Monique
a hero.
has done. But the interesting thing is Lena Dunham. She's not. I called her apolitical a moment ago. She's actually not. She endorsed Hillary Clinton. She's a very big Hillary Clinton supporter. Also,
And she rapped about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty bad.
Scott Stringer, who is a New York City comptroller, she felt the need to weigh in on the comptroller's race in the Democratic primary a few years ago, and he is like, she has she's of that world of big money, people who are insulated in New York City, they're in with Wall Street and that stuff. So she's probably personally friends with Scott Stringer. So she's an influence peddler, and she's continuing. Yeah, she's using her platform to further, this rapacious, fucking ugly, debaucherous thing that she should be criticizing from the inside, but she's celebrating and advancing it.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think she just if she could get a do-over, what she should do is be like this person in this piece that's just sick and just surrounded by hairless cats. She has 3 hairless cats apparently, and in the middle of the interview is just popping blackheads on one of the cats' heads while texting with Amy Schumer and shit.
Gross.
And if you wrote that story, that would be just a great anti-hero or something.
Why are they hairless?
I don't know, man. She talks about the sort of that weird story that went off about that the dog that she returned to that shelter, and how the guy that sort of
I'm getting mad.
that was told on her was basically some DJ who was trying to cash in on this thing that happened with Lena Dunham. She also mentions, by the way, as long as I'm talking about her pets, there's a line in that piece where she's as a person who has a tendency to adopt late in life pets, some of your animals are going to die, which just
true.
I wish
funny
Dr.
because it's
Katz
true.
was around so she could go on Dr. Katz.
she would be good on it.
Yeah, she would be
Didn't
great.
Carlos yell at her? This is when she was returning her dog. I don't want to tell his story, but it's a great story. This is Carlos is very chill,
An
person.
equally famous person.
Yeah, but he apparently just lost it because it was right by Precious Metal where they go to do the animal shelter thing, and she was returning the dog, and he just started screaming at her, which I'm having trouble imagining.
What?
Yeah.
Well, if you've ever heard him on the show, he's very loud.
He's loud, but he's
His
so
laughing
nice
is
that
loud.
it's Carlos, at Carlos, we'll get him to tell the story. It's his story.
Someone has to tell this story.
I don't know.
Demands to be told.
I remember somebody was giving some advice about doing anything autobiographical, whether it's a memoir, a think piece, a stand-up, and the guy said, anything autobiographical should have, 3 elements to make it, just not navel-gazing and narcissistic, and it should be born of something, it should be about that something, and then have something insightful, self-aware, and universal to say about that something. And I think hers stopped at the second, and people started, because they were very smart people, started projecting the third into her work. Because I would read a lot of critics, and they would critics I respect, and they would read things into the early episodes, that they thought she was saying, and it sounded good. And I think by the 4th or 5th episode, people just kind of started saying, wait, she just has the first 2. She's just talking about herself. And very accurately. I think she was very good at perfectly capturing a type of voice or conversation she probably really heard. But what I found really interesting was, I used to read this TV criticism blog called Siepenwall, and he was in the tank.
Oh, yeah, Alan Siepenwall.
Yeah, I like Alan Siepenwall, but he was in the tank for the show. And after a while, he and the commenters just started being at odds every time that it came up. They were like, Alan, how do you still like this show? The Emperor has no clothes. But there'd always be a handful of 10 female commenters who would always say, I don't care what people are so hard on the show. Me and my friends watch it, and we say, that sounds just like us. And it was weird that alone was supposed to be justification. Just that it sounds accurate. The assumption that you and your friends are interesting enough to warrant a TV show.
She's captured the voice of Four Loko.
I think that people that watch TV and actually enjoy it don't write about it on the internet. That type of person that's this, this is great because I can project myself onto it. It's a person who doesn't enjoy television or entertainment.
What's wrong with True Blood? That's what I do every day.
Well, that shit's, I mean...
The thing about Rocco, because you can't see him, is he's like a hot vampire. And we just have to deal with it.
I don't know. But, I mean, True Blood is probably more fun to watch because you're not sitting there going, this is an avatar for other vampires in the world, and them, climbing the system of society in a way that then inspires vampires like myself and my vampire children. Like, that's not a sane way to look at,
as
TV.
a vampire.
Yeah.
You do not speak for all vampires.
She reminds me of Joffrey on Game of Thrones, because like the thing that people don't understand about that character, like the guy who played Joffrey on Game of Thrones, apparently when he walks around in like England, people just scream at him and shit.
Wait, is that the blonde guy?
They throw tarts.
Yeah, the little evil kid.
I met that guy.
You met Joffrey?
I met that guy.
Get the
and
fuck
that's
out of
Scream
here.
at him? Did you hit him with a biscuit?
I don't remember. I was drunk, but I probably
Oh no.
It almost definitely was not Joffrey then. That's
did.
good to
No.
know.
It was. People were telling me because I hadn't seen the show, and I took a picture. People knew
Anders,
who he was.
get him.
I
Get him.
have a
It's
picture of him
Joffrey.
right here.
Have you seen his post Game of Thrones career? It's very.
He quit acting.
He quit acting, and he's super woke. And like something has to be an act. Because when I used to watch the show, I'm like, this guy must be a real psychopath. Nobody acts as good. And then he gives speeches about how money's not everything, and you have to give to society. He's like super woke. I'm like, okay, both of these are too convincing. He's either the best actor on earth, has a split personality, or something's really off with this guy. But yeah, he pulls off both performances pretty good.
I don't know. I mean, maybe he got like. It sounds like he
him?
was. Yeah, what the fuck?
I met him at a bar.
Yeah, that's definitely him.
That's
What
so
the
crazy.
fuck? How'd you get under his chin like that?
Yeah, what the hell?
I was drunk.
That's a really weird angle, dude.
Oh man, you got to tweet that fucking photo. I'll retweet it on the
Okay.
on the
People have to
podcast.
see that one.
He has a lot of empathy for other people because of his condition where he can't go out in the sun.
But well, he also said like he couldn't go outside without people getting really mad at him,
And because he'll burn.
for being Joffrey or whatever. Also, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think it would make sense to be like he quit acting, so he probably was just like, I want to wash my hands of all of this shit because clearly this is like a bad system or something. I don't fucking know. Who
No, that's
knows?
exactly the kind of stuff he was saying. Yeah, in the speeches, he was going to universities and telling people to like care about the world and don't enter like selfish industries. And
He reminds me of like Bo Burnham, like a 23-year-old young white guy that suddenly like figured out this exact thing and now is just running around just going like, you guys, we have to stop shaming people. Just like,
I wrote a song about it.
who I like. I like Bo Burnham and I like this job.
Yeah, I respect the people who do that. Like Rick Moranis did that. His wife died, and then he was just like washed his hands of the industry. It's like he's like, I hate this place, and my wife's dead. I'm gonna take care of my kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's sad because he was really good. Like I wish a really hacky person would just come to that realization and like leave us alone. Like
Yeah.
I actually miss Rick Moranis.
Never works that way.
I've heard some bad things about him.
What
Rick
bad
Moranis?
things have you heard about
no.
Rick Moranis?
God,
Do you have
yeah.
a picture under Rick Moranis' chin?
No, I just heard his kid went to a private school and there was like
It was a private
Canceled.
It was a private. Sent his child to a private prison. No, I shouldn't gossip, but he's not a good guy.
You work for TMZ?
Okay.
What is
What?
happening?
I don't know.
I don't
Sorry.
know.
This-
He's
I-
got all the dirt
As soon
today,
as it
man.
left my mouth, I'm like,
Oh my god! I'm
he
so
apparently
horny now.
apparently there was some other kid who was a person of color who got a scholarship and he was mad about that, so he called the parents and was like yelling at them. I'm sorry.
Oh, wow.
We should
I
cut
didn't
that
quit
out.
showbiz for this.
We should cut that out. This is not. We cannot stand the lawsuit. So I apologize.
Everything Anders says in this
Jake.
podcast is satire.
Yeah.
That's the
Sad
asterisk.
tire. That's right.
Rick Moranis is our only Patreon.
Yeah.
Honey, I Shrunk the Scholarship.
Speaking of private prisons and the like, should we talk about the wildfires in California? The children that are fighting them, who are our troops, as we know.
That's true. Respect them.
And this crazy piece by, who was it, Anders?
Mike Davis.
And then they can't fight fires when they get out of jail, even though they have the most experience of fighting the fires.
Right, you're only allowed to fight them as a slave for like pennies on the hour.
It's spooky. A fire truck blazed by as we were
That was
discussing
really
that.
weird.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
really fucking
yeah.
weird.
That was not a soundboard. That was
We're not that good.
Play the fire truck?
That was a fucking warning.
Man, but like,
have
who
a
wants
segment
to
where we
fight a
bash
fire?
fire.
Like, why would you ever turn anyone away from that? It's too
Yeah.
hot.
Yeah.
Well, they do. Yeah, they use the prison laborers, I guess.
Andrews, you want to tell us about this piece?
Yeah, so this guy Mike Davis, who I'm going to be getting a book of his soon, but he's a really old guy who was like a truck driver for a long time, but also kind of involved in organizing and stuff. And this whole time he's like reading about Marx and ecology and just all the really smart dude. And then in his like 50s or something, starts publishing books. And he wrote this book in the 90s called Ecology of Fear. And he's written a lot about California and sort of the dark underbelly of the history of cities like Los Angeles and all the fucked up stuff they've done. But he had a chapter in this book that got him a lot of heat, if you will, called The Case.
Industry heat. That's what he's talking
Let the man finish.
The fire take for Mike Davis is called The Case for Letting Malibu Burn. Because, as he points out, this has been happening since the 30s. From the very beginning, fire has defined Malibu in the American imagination. Sailing northward from San Pedro to Santa Barbara in 1835, Richard Henry Dana described a vast blaze along the coast of Jose Tapia's Rancho Topango, Malibu, Sequit. So they've known
impeccable pronunciation.
Thank you. They've known for a long time that this place will burn. Every couple decades, you'll just have a huge fire, even without carbon emissions. That's just the way the fucking ecosystem works there. But they keep building these luxury houses there, and then every 10 years, they'll start burning, and all this public money has to go to Malibu to stop these fires. And meanwhile, in poorer areas, there's all these fires that are happening, some for more natural causes or more unnatural causes, I guess. But we're diverting all of these public resources to pay for rich people's property, and like it's just a waste. And But to make this point is to contradict the idea of private property and the idea of capitalism. So that's why people think it's insensitive to bring it up every time there's a wildfire in California, but it's an important point.
Really, it's just a mistake to live in California, the state that is always on fire and being shot into the sea.
Yeah.
You know what's weird? John Stossel had the exact same article, but about floods.
Oh.
in 2003. That's really weird. Like two really opposite people. Like I have it up here. Like taxpayers get soaked by government's flood insurance. And he talks about how these places keep getting hit with floods, and then, but then they keep rebuilding, and then they have to wash it. That's so weird.
Horseshoe theory is real.
Yeah.
John Stossel is like Sub-Zero, and the other guy is Scorpio. They're both two sides of the same coin. Scorpio? Scorpion.
Scorpion.
I haven't played Mortal Kombat in a long time.
And he's an Aries.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Is he really?
I don't fucking know. He's not a real guy. He's a
John
demon
Stossel?
from hell.
I'm assuming he still has a birthday.
Give him a break.
What if John Stossel did a report on Scorpio? It's like, we don't even know when this guy was born. Is he a Scorpio or an Aries?
Does Scorpio pay his taxes?
Killing me. We're all calling him Scorpio.
Remember that there was a thing he did about modern art, and it was actually pretty funny because he did some he had this like scam series or whatever, and there was a painting that was going for like thousands of dollars that a kid had painted, and he talked to these like art dealers about it, and they're like, "Oh yes, it's so fluorescent and lovely." And then he was like, "Just so you know, a kid painted that."
Yeah.
And they're like,
I remember that one.
yeah, and they're like, "Okay, I would still pay $50,000 for it." But he
Child
doesn't
genius.
put the pieces together. It's like, yeah, nothing should cost fucking. We shouldn't be commodifying anything. This is, the answer there is, as always, Marxism.
I was going to say
Lena
stealing.
Dunham painted that picture.
Every picture of a hairless cat was done by Lena Dunham.
I'm gonna pause real. All right, so as long as we're covering climate change, things being on fire, flooded underwater, etc., just to tie it back to Beto, as long as he's still in the news and is being sort of hurrahed as this guy that should be running in 2020 for some fucking weird reason. Something that I think is interesting and important to explain about him is, as there are these like terrible New York Times pieces coming out that are trying to position him as like more to the left than Bernie or something.
Yeah.
There was one that was like, pretty much everyone around in our revolution circle is like outshining Bernie. They just,
they mentioned him in the same breath as Barbara Lee.
Yeah,
it was insane.
And AOC, which is like, that's they can push her all. That's good, but it's weird.
Oh yeah, maybe it was AOC, not Barbara Lee, but
it was a few people, but they're just trying to slip him in there in an obvious move.
Well, because by progressive they mean young and hot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they just don't have a standard for what that means. Yeah. He's not great on the environment.
No, he isn't. Like just like this year, this campaign, he took 73,000 from ExxonMobil, and then of the top 20 members of the House, including Republicans, he took 400,000 from oil and gas industry. Second is Paul Ryan at 390,000.
That's fucking crazy.
Also, in addition to like not even oil and gas, like taking 80,000 from Apple, all these tech industries, 80,000 from Facebook, 80,000 from Microsoft, 77 from Amazon. Like he's a shill, like all the other ones.
And it's I didn't want to like shit on him too much while he was running against Ted Cruz because it just feels like a bad look to be whatever he's running against Ted Cruz. Good for him, but
fuck Ted Cruz. Yeah.
As now he should be examined if people are gonna bang the fucking 2020 drums for him. I mean between him obviously having corporate interests, even though he's sort of made a show of trying to do the small donor thing, that combined with this whole AIPAC meeting, I mean this should tell you everything you need to know about the person as not a progressive. If someone doesn't have climate change on their immediate platform, and if someone is frankly in support of American imperialism and this whole fucking Israel state thing, in this,
fuck them.
Yeah, fuck them. That's the bare minimum.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't want to go off too hard on the fucking Israel thing because it's whatever. It's a comedy podcast on some level, but it's just a bad sign. I mean, it's if you don't have you can't call this person someone who should be related to anyone within stone's throw of fucking socialism if it's they're still inherently an imperialist.
Yeah.
In my opinion. Anyway, that was Jake's serious corner. I don't know why I lumped that in the middle of a rant about Lena Dunham, but as long as we are talking about
Lena and Beto, 2020.
I thought you said Lennon. I was
like
John Lennon.
John
Lennon. Yeah, John Lennon.
As long as we are talking about the environment, I'll do the talk show thing here. T, I understand that you have a story.
Now you're gonna make it sound better than it actually is, but no, this is one of those stories where you get mad about something, but you feel guilty about being mad about it because you feel like it shouldn't be important enough for you to get mad about. Like I felt like I was one of those like white ladies with the Kate Gosselin haircuts that wants to see the manager. Like I felt like that energy, but I got this environmental like metal like coffee tumbler that you don't have to get paper from the coffee shop to get your coffee. You just bring it in, they refill it and whatever. And every time I go in with this thing, if there's any coffee or anything left in it, in Brooklyn at least, I give it to the barista, they rinse it out, then they put the new coffee in there. And I go to this chain in Manhattan that's been popping up all over called Joe and the Juice, and it's really a pretentious chain. It's all over the place. You ever see one of those chains that for no reason it just pops up overnight and it's suddenly like 100 of them? It's like one of those type of chains. It's everywhere. But just to say I didn't go to Starbucks, I went to Joe and the Juice, which is like marginally better. I order the coffee and I said, can you put it in this? I start to hand it to the barista and he jumps back like 2 feet, like horrified, like I'm trying to give him anthrax. He's like, I can't touch that. It's company policy. I can't touch it. I'm like, no, I need you to, rinse this. And this was weird to me. So he's like, no, you have to go into the bathroom and rinse it yourself. So then I start getting pissed. I go to the bathroom, I rinse it, and I come back. I'm like, dude, why can't you just rinse this thing? Like I don't understand. And then he's like, no, it's company policy, cross-contamination. But he still touches it to put it under the coffee thing to fill it with coffee. And I might a crazy one. This is one of those things I want to know. Am I the one that's off here.
You know what I think?
Yeah.
I think this is your 90s stand-up set. Like, who are these fucking people trying to keep? What are you?
Who are these people?
What are you wearing a hazmat suit back there? The contamination is everywhere. You're just yelling about germs and shit. I don't know.
See where maybe you like the Rajneeshis did this, where they would let viruses out in open places, restaurants and things. Maybe they're scared of that in a place like Manhattan.
Yeah, you just binge watched right before you came.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
This is what someone put there in the handbook. There's actually a handbook, and somebody said, "Don't touch people's cups." Like it just.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's a like clear like you know the thing about working in like the service industry in New York is that there's a million laws like that are basically the point of them is not actually food safety. It's just that there's this long sort of history of the health department having an ability to come put pressure on businesses and then sort of have this like vague system of points that you have to get enough points to pass your test and get a fucking B or an A or whatever, but it's completely arbitrary. I can tell you, I haven't worked in a bunch of bars and stuff.
Yeah, it's so they can accrue fine fees. Yeah.
So you think there's actual "don't touch the cup" law on the books? That seems even crazier.
There is a law, but it's not really enforced.
Okay.
It's like you just kind of have to. It's fucking insane. Like if you work in a bar or a restaurant here, there's just a code word you yell out when the health inspector shows up. Usually, if you're in good standing with the health inspector, they tell you like, we're gonna come on Wednesday, and then you just make sure everything is up to code on that day or whatever.
Goes back to fucking whatever it was on Thursday.
This reminds me of this crazy fucking story. The first bar I ever worked at in New York when I first moved here, this place called 282 in downtown Brooklyn. It sucked. It was my first. I just had to work there. The very first day, this weird ass kid that eventually just told on me and got me fired came up to me and just warned me that one of my customers was a slur for a homosexual person. Fucking horrible place full of. It's just like run by some small business psycho. Just not a good place, right? And
is that the burger place?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Burgers are fine, but there was this when they first opened, they were trying to get their health inspection. There was this like kind of like attractive health inspector lady that came in, and there was also this waiter that would just drink like a pint glass of vodka every shift and just get blackout drunk, and he punched the guy who owned the place at one point, and they had this long sort of dramatic thing where they were trying to get their health inspection, and she kept giving them a failing mark because they weren't running their stuff up to code or whatever, and eventually the belligerent blackout waiter who got fired went and got drunk with the health inspector after work and totally hooked up with her, and then she came back and gave them an A.
Oh wow!
And that's why that place is in business.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything. The letters, like you can have an A rating, and then the next day, and it's clean for one day, then they go back to fucking putting shit on the floor.
I say, if there's a C up there, go on, live a little.
Right.
Get yourself immunized.
Take a chance.
And you have more control as a customer. They have to knock the prices down if they have a shitty rating.
There's a Nigerian restaurant by me that has, as long as I've lived in the neighborhood, a grade pending, and I never wanted to go in there, but it was always packed. And I started thinking, if this thing could be grade pending for this long, and people still keep going, it must be like really good food. And sure enough, the food is like great. Like their food is so good, they just don't care about trying to pass the thing. Apparently.
Yeah. Yeah, you just got to grease some palms, Also, like, I've been hearing a lot of people, because Amazon is moving to Long Island City, like, a lot of people, a hot take I've heard around the stand-up world lately is like, oh, you guys all protest this Amazon thing, but you still use an iPhone and you still drink, Starbucks coffee and
Very
shit.
smart take, yes.
I've been, like, really, like, that made me so mad because it's such a clear misunderstanding of capitalism, and, it's that meme of the guy in the well going, oh, you participate in capitalism and yet you use it. Fuck it, dude. I'm tired. Fast food's there. Starbucks is available,
Well, it's like it reminds me of the
Starbucks won't throw your coffee cup out and touch it with a hazmat suit and tell you it's cross-contaminated.
It reminds me of like the early aughts like green movement where it was like, well, instead of using bags, why don't you have your kid carry something or something like all like solving the environment is like only down to the individual or like nothing on multinationals.
Yeah, it's something that you just it's through consumerism only, and it's not even like that's really what is important to those people. What's important to those people, I think, is to shame other people for
and
not
to appear
consuming correctly or whatever.
To appear like as if they're doing something. Yeah. And it's fine if you want to do something to like feel empowered or whatever. Yeah.
Speaking of John Stossel again, I feel like I remember there was one time he had a segment about I guess trying to prove poverty wasn't real or something. It was one of those type of things, and he was like following this couple like. Are they really, as poor as they say, or he's basically trying to say like they don't need a living wage, they're just wasteful and they deserve to be poor. So he's like following them around. He goes, and notice they got bottled water. Like why do they need to get bottled water if they're really poor? Like, yeah. So basically,
you drink from a well. Yeah. Anyway, I could go off on that, but we're about an hour, so we'll save it for next time.
Shout out to Stossel.
T, thank you for joining us. Is there
Thanks
anything
for having me.
you'd like to plug?
Oh no, just check out Champagne Sharks. Google it, you'll find it, and yeah, that's it.
Cool, great podcast. I think I'm about to be on it. So
yes,
check that shit out. As for me, my live stand-up comedy show that I run with Claire O'Kane and Ian Fidance, Yoko, is back on December 12th. It'll be second Tuesdays of every month at El Cortez in Bushwick. Come check it out. I think we got some pretty good guests on the lineup this week. I've got a tour kicking off in January. I'll be going down the East Coast and then through Texas and into the Southwest. Part of it will be with my pal Mishka Shubali from the last tour, if he came out for that. So you can see him play some new songs, me do some new jokes. And then, I don't know, if you're a new listener and you want to hear more episodes, we put out a Patreon episode every week. Sign up for a Patreon, rate, review, subscribe, all that shit.
Cool. I'm Raga Meta. Follow me, ACLU Official. I got a Thursday show, stand-up show in Park Slope called Airplane Mode. Please come to it, 8 p.m., Cherry Tree Bar. And also, I'm going to go to Tulum, Mexico in like 3 weeks. If you listen to this show and you know of fun things I can do there with my girlfriend, please hit me up because I'm not going to just read Reddit posts about it.
Tulum?
Tulum, yeah.
Oh, you got to go see the ruins, man.
Oh, I'm going to do it. We're going to do it.
That shit's cool.
Yeah.
Anders Lee here. Check me out on Twitter and social media. I am also doing some stand-up this weekend, Thursday at Artichoke Pizza in Bushwick, and then Sunday at the Pine Box Rock Shop. Sunday's 9 p.m., Thursday at 8.
All right. Meeting adjourned.